My boyfriend smirked. Why don't you clean the house yourself? I'm not your maid. I'd just finished a 14-hour shift and walked into an apartment he'd trashed while he lay on the couch scrolling through TikTok. So I picked up the first dirty plate and started cleaning. What he didn't realize was that I wasn't cleaning our home anymore. I was getting it ready for the day he moved out. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 32, and until that night, I'd spent almost a year convincing myself that exhaustion was simply part of loving someone. It was 11:47 p.m. when I unlocked the apartment door. After 14 hours managing a system failure that threatened one of our company's biggest contracts, all I wanted was a hot shower and a few hours of sleep. Instead, stale takeout, damp laundry, and the sour smell of dirty dishes hit me before the door had even closed. The living room looked as if a closet had exploded. Clothes covered the chairs, shoes blocked the hallway, and delivery boxes were piled beside the television. Ethan Cole lounged on the sofa with one foot on the coffee table, laughing at TikTok videos without even glancing up when I walked in. Hey, I said. Hey, that was it. No, how was your day? No acknowledgement that I'd left before sunrise, or that I was carrying my laptop and work bag after 14 exhausting hours. I stood there waiting for him to notice me. He never did. The kitchen was worse. Every bowl we owned sat in the sink beneath a frying pan crusted with dried sauce, while 2 empty takeout containers balanced on top of an overflowing trash bag. I closed my eyes, counted to 5, then asked, Ethan, did you eat? There's probably something left in the refrigerator. I meant, did you make dinner? He finally looked over the back of the couch. I ordered something. For yourself? I didn't know when you'd be home. I texted you at 6. I glanced at his phone for barely a second. I haven't checked my messages. The words hurt more than they should have. Ethan could spend hours watching strangers online, yet somehow never found 30 seconds to reply to the person paying almost every bill in his life. A year earlier, he'd quit his marketing job. At first, I supported him. He came home one Friday evening, loosened his tie, and admitted he could barely sleep. His manager had been humiliating him in meetings, 2 co-workers had quit within weeks, and he looked completely drained. I can't keep doing this, he said quietly. I feel like I'm disappearing. I reached across the kitchen table and took his hand. Then leave. He searched my face. What about rent? I can cover us for a few months. He promised to rest, see a therapist, and start applying for healthier jobs once he got back on his feet. I believed him because that's what love looked like to me. You carried more when the person beside you couldn't. A few months quietly turned into almost a year. Therapy ended after 2 sessions. Job hunting became something he'd start next Monday, while our apartment slowly filled with new shoes, gaming gear, skincare products, headphones, and clothes he wore once before tossing them onto the bedroom floor. Every purchase went onto the supplementary card linked to my account. Whenever I questioned the spending, Ethan said I was making him feel dependent. If I suggested a budget, I was treating him like a child. If I asked him to help around the apartment, he reminded me he was still emotionally exhausted. I knew what exhaustion felt like. I was living it. Back in the living room, I picked up another shirt from the floor. Have you been home all day? Mostly. Could you at least do the dishes? His thumb kept scrolling. Ethan. What? The kitchen's a mess. I heard you. Then help me clean it. He sighed as though I were asking for something unreasonable. Claire, I'm tired. I stared at him. What? He asked after finally looking up. You're tired. People can be tired even if they don't spend 14 hours in an office. I never said otherwise. You were thinking it. I asked you to help with the dishes. And I said I'm tired. His voice sharpened in the familiar way that always warned me the conversation would somehow end with me apologizing. That had become our pattern. Ethan disappointed me, I brought it up, he accused me of being controlling, and eventually I apologized just to keep the peace. The first time I should have recognized his indifference was on his 31st birthday. I'd worked late all week so I could spend Saturday with him, and I bought him a silver watch he'd admired months earlier. It wasn't expensive, but I remembered how excited he'd looked when he first saw it in the display window. That evening, I found the unopened gift box in the trash. The watch was still inside. Why, I asked. He shrugged. It looks cheap in person. You could have told me. I just did. Then he went back to his phone. Instead of seeing the truth, I exchanged the watch and apologized for choosing the wrong gift. Standing in that living room 11 months later, every apology I'd ever made suddenly came rushing back. The cancelled dinners, the meals we'd never shared, the nights he turned away when I reached for him, the sighs whenever I mentioned bills, and the mocking smile that appeared every time I asked us to start acting like partners again. I laid his shirt across the arm of the sofa. Ethan, I can't keep doing everything by myself. I gave a dry laugh. Here comes the speech. I'm asking for help. No, you're trying to make me feel useless because you earn more than I do. I've never called you useless. You didn't have to. Something inside me grew very quiet. It wasn't anger anymore. Anger meant I still believed there was something left to fight for. This felt different. For the first time, I understood the truth. Ethan knew exactly how exhausted I was. He watched me come home drained every night, carry the groceries upstairs, cook, do the laundry, and open my laptop again after midnight. He saw all of it and simply assumed I would keep doing it. I looked at the overflowing sink one last time. "Please put the dishes away." Ethan leaned back, smirked, and said, "Why don't you clean the house yourself? I'm not your maid." The apartment fell silent. I looked at the man I'd once imagined marrying, the man I'd defended whenever friends quietly asked why he still wasn't working. He mistook my silence for surrender. "What?" he said. "You're the one obsessed with everything being perfect." I set my phone on the counter, took off my blazer, rolled up my sleeves, and nodded. "Fine, I'll do it." His smile widened. He turned back to TikTok, convinced he'd won, never realizing I was no longer trying to save our relationship. I was figuring out how to end it. I started in the kitchen. Hot water filled the sink while I scrubbed dried sauce from the pans and stacked the dishes without looking toward the living room. Behind me, TikTok videos kept playing, followed by another laugh from Ethan. I wasn't cleaning because I cared about the apartment anymore. I was cleaning because keeping my hands busy helped me accept what I'd already decided. For months, I'd imagined leaving after one of our arguments. In every version, I cried, hesitated, and hoped he'd stop me. That night, I felt none of those things. Only clarity. Ethan finally paused his phone. "Are you seriously cleaning everything right now?" "You told me to." "I didn't mean make such a big show of it." "I'm not." "You're slamming everything around." I quietly placed another plate onto the drying rack. Nothing had been slammed. He was already rewriting the story, so I'd be the unreasonable one. After replacing the trash bag, I carried the full one toward the door. "You could leave it until morning." "I could, but then you couldn't pretend you're the only responsible person here." I stopped and looked back. "You've been home since noon." "So?" "The trash chute is 20 feet away." His expression tightened. "I told you I wasn't feeling well." "You said you were tired." "Same thing." "No, Ethan, it isn't." For once, he had nothing to say. When I came back inside, he'd already turned his phone volume up again. I began gathering the clothes scattered across the floor, separating mine from his and placing his belongings into a box by the sofa. He lowered his phone. "What are you doing?" "Organizing." "Why are my clothes over there?" "So I know where they are." "That doesn't make any sense." "It will." Uncertainty finally crossed his face. I set my laptop on the dining table and opened our banking app. "What are you doing now?" "Checking something." He sat up the moment the login screen appeared. Our household account had started as a shared account when we moved in together. Back then, we both contributed. Over time, my salary paid almost everything, but we still used the same cards for rent, groceries, and utilities. As I scrolled through the transactions, the usual purchases appeared first. Food delivery, online shopping, streaming services, gaming subscriptions. Then 3 transfers caught my eye. $600. $100. $100. All sent to the same initials. OG. The oldest transfer was 7 weeks old. The newest had been made only 4 days earlier. "What is OG?" I asked. Ethan's expression changed just enough for me to notice. His shoulders stiffened and his eyes flicked toward his phone before meeting mine again. "I don't know. You've sent this person the $2,650. I send people money sometimes, using my salary. Our account. It stopped being our account when you stopped putting money into it." His jaw tightened. "You said I could use it for household expenses." "That was never the agreement." "That was exactly the agreement." He pushed back his chair. "You always do this. Something's ours until you're angry, then suddenly it belongs only to you." "I'm not angry." My calm voice unsettled him more than shouting ever could. "Then why are you digging through transactions in the middle of the night?" "Because you still haven't told me who OG is." "It's nobody." "Then say the name." I looked away. I didn't need him to answer. There had only ever been one Olivia in Ethan's life. Olivia Grant was the girlfriend he'd spent nearly 4 years breaking up with and getting back together before we met. He'd once told me she brought out the worst in him and that he never wanted that life again. During our first year together, her name surfaced now and then. A birthday text, a comment on a mutual friend's post, a late-night call he claimed he'd ignored. Eventually, she disappeared. Until now. OG is Olivia, isn't it? He let out a bitter laugh. "You've been waiting to accuse me of something." I asked a question. "She needed help." That was all the confirmation I needed. "What kind of help?" "That's private." "You used my money." "Our money." "To send thousands of dollars to your ex." "She lost her apartment." "So you paid her rent?" "She was in a bad situation." "And it never occurred to you to tell me?" "You would have reacted exactly like this." "Like what?" "Jealous, controlling, cold." I held his gaze. "Did Olivia know the money came from me?" He folded his arms. "That's not relevant." His refusal told me everything. I opened the payment details and started taking screenshots. Ethan immediately reached for the laptop, but I pulled it out of reach. What are you doing? Documenting the transfers. You're being ridiculous. I'm protecting myself. From what? From someone who lied to me while spending money I earned. His face reddened. I've sacrificed plenty for you. Name one. The question escaped before I could stop it. Ethan opened his mouth, searched for an answer, then gave up. That silence told me more than any excuse ever could. I'm not doing this at midnight, he muttered. You weren't doing anything. He frowned. What is that supposed to mean? It means I've spent the last year asking you to be my partner, and you've treated every request like an attack. You love making yourself the victim. I don't feel like one anymore. Something in my voice made him hesitate. I closed the banking app, changed the password, and removed his card from the household account. His phone buzzed almost instantly. What did you just do? I revoked your access. You can't do that. I already have. You said that money was ours. It was for our home, not Olivia. His voice rose. So I'm being punished for helping someone? No, I'm making sure you can't take anything else. I carried my laptop into the bedroom. He followed close behind. You think I'm stealing from you? I think you secretly sent $2,650 to your ex. She was desperate. So was I. He stopped in the doorway. What are you talking about? I've been desperate for you to notice me for almost a year. For a brief moment, the anger disappeared from his face. Then he shook his head. You're being dramatic. I nodded. That sentence ended whatever was left between us. I pulled an empty suitcase from the closet and started placing my essential documents, including the apartment lease. What are you doing? He asked. Not tonight. What does that even mean? It means I'm too tired to explain something you should have understood months ago. You're not leaving. He said it with complete certainty, as though it were impossible. You think I'll wake up tomorrow, make coffee, and pretend none of this happened? You always calm down. I know. My answer seemed to reassure him. He shrugged, returned to the living room, and within minutes another TikTok video echoed through the apartment. I sat on the bed and opened an old email. 6 months earlier, after one of our worst arguments, I'd contacted a family law attorney named Rebecca Shaw. We weren't married, but I wanted to understand my rights regarding the lease, our finances, and what could happen if we separated. I never booked the consultation because I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. This time I didn't. I found Rebecca's reply, attached screenshots of the transfers, and wrote, My boyfriend has lived with me for 2 years. The lease is in my name, and I financially support him. Tonight I discovered he transferred money from our household account to his ex-girlfriend without my knowledge. I need to end this relationship and separate our finances legally and safely. Before pressing send, I looked into the living room. The apartment was cleaner than it had been in months. Ethan sat on the couch beside neatly folded clothes and carefully stacked boxes, still believing I'd organized everything for our home. I didn't realize I'd packed his belongings because they were leaving with him. I hit send. Rebecca called at exactly 8 the next morning. Don't remove him without proper notice, she said after reviewing my email. Preserve every financial record and we'll go through everything when you arrive. I closed the laptop, locked the lease folder inside my suitcase, and looked up as Ethan appeared in the doorway. You're really trying to scare me? I switched off the lamp. No, Ethan. I lay down without looking at him. I'm making sure I never have to scare you again. Rebecca listened carefully while I summarized the past 11 months. The 14-hour workdays, the bills that quietly became my responsibility, the money Ethan had sent Olivia, and the lease that remained solely in my name. When I finished, she asked only 2 questions. Whose name is on the lease? Mine. And the household account? I opened it before we moved in together. Ethan was only an authorized user. She nodded. Those are separate legal issues. The apartment is yours under the lease, and we'll preserve every financial transaction before taking another step. Don't argue with him. Let the documentation speak for itself. After months, someone wasn't asking me to be more patient. She was telling me to protect myself. I'd like to see you at 3 this afternoon, Rebecca said. And Claire, if you've already made your decision, don't let guilt change it. Those words stayed with me all morning. I left for work before Ethan got out of bed. Around noon, he called. Why doesn't my card work? I removed it from the household account. You can't just cut me off. I already did. What am I supposed to use? Your own account. There isn't enough money. I know. A long silence followed before he laughed. So this is revenge? No. Then what is it? Accountability. He scoffed. You're unbelievable. I'll text you an address. What address? My attorney's office. 3 o'clock. Before he could respond, I ended the call. Rebecca's office occupied the 7th floor of a quiet brick building downtown. By the time I arrived, she'd already prepared a folder containing the apartment lease, bank statements, transfer records, screenshots, and every payment Ethan had sent to Olivia. You've done the right thing by preserving everything, Rebecca said. I kept wondering if I was overreacting. She slid a document toward me. You aren't here because of dirty dishes. You've been financially supporting another adult for almost a year. These transfers simply expose a pattern that was already there. Before I could answer, the receptionist knocked. Ms. Bennett, Mr. Cole is here. Rebecca glanced at me. Ready? I nodded. I've never been more ready. Ethan walked into the conference room with the same confidence he'd carried for months. His eyes moved from Rebecca to the folder on the table before settling on me. What is this? Rebecca offered a polite smile. I'm Claire Bennett's attorney. His expression changed instantly. Attorney? My client has asked me to assist with ending your cohabitation arrangement, separating shared finances, and documenting unauthorized household expenditures. He laughed. Oh, come on. Claire, seriously? Sit down, I said. This is ridiculous. Rebecca remained calm. You're welcome to stay standing, Mr. Cole. The information won't change. After a brief hesitation, he pulled out a chair. Rebecca opened the file. The apartment lease is solely in Ms. Bennett's name. She has exercised her legal right to terminate your residency after the required notice period. You can't kick me out. She calmly slid the notice across the table. This complies with local tenancy regulations. He skimmed the first page, and the confidence slowly disappeared from his face. Rebecca continued. The household account has also been separated. I looked at me. You froze my card over one stupid argument. It wasn't one argument. It was about dishes. No. Rebecca placed another stack of papers in front of him. It was also about these. He flipped through the statements. Every transfer to Olivia Grant was listed with its date and amount. You went through my transactions. I reviewed my account. It wasn't your account. You stopped contributing 11 months ago, I replied before Rebecca could speak. I was going through something. So was I. You said you'd support me. I did. For almost a year. You never complained. I asked for help hundreds of times. You turned everything into a fight. Rebecca let the silence settle before asking, Mr. Cole, can you explain why household funds were transferred to Ms. Olivia Grant? Han shifted in his chair. She needed help. What kind of help? Rent. Did Ms. Bennett approve those transfers? No. Did you tell her? No. Rebecca made a brief note. You're acting like I committed a crime. I'm documenting facts, she replied evenly. He turned back to me. Olivia would have been homeless. So you decided I should pay her rent? It wasn't like that. Then explain it. I couldn't let her struggle. I leaned forward. And yet, you watched me work 14-hour days without wondering if I was struggling. He opened his mouth, but no explanation came. Rebecca placed one final report in front of him. This summarizes the household spending over the last 6 months. Months of discretionary spending filled the report, ending with every transfer to Olivia. You tracked all of this? I paid for all of it. Hal rubbed his forehead. You've always cared too much about money. No, I held his gaze. I cared about having to partner. Han leaned back in his chair. You think you're perfect? Not even close. You've never made mistakes? I have. Then why am I the villain? Rebecca quietly closed the folder. Because this meeting isn't about assigning blame. He frowned. Then what's it about? It's about choices. Neither of us spoke. Rebecca looked directly at him. Ms. Bennett has decided this relationship is over. Ethan stared at me, waiting for me to interrupt her, to change my mind or to tell him she'd misunderstood. I didn't say a word. Ethan kept staring at me, as if waiting for me to smile, interrupt Rebecca, or admit this had all gone too far. When I remained silent, his voice softened for the first time. Claire, you can't seriously be ending everything. I already did. When? Last night. He slowly shook his head. No, last night you were just angry. I wasn't angry. Then what were you? I held his gaze. I was finished. The words hit him harder than any argument. His shoulders sagged. You really think money matters more than us? For a moment, I almost laughed. Even now, he still believed this was about money. It was never about money. Then what? It was about waking up every day beside someone who watched me carry both our lives and still believed he was the one being treated unfairly. Hein looked away. Rebecca slid one final document across the table. This simply acknowledges that you've received today's notice. I'm not signing anything. You don't have to. She collected the unsigned form without hesitation. Your signature isn't required for the notice to take effect. His jaw tightened. So that's it. I nodded. That's it. He shoved back his chair and stood. You'll regret this. I don't think I will. He let out a bitter laugh and headed for the door. Just before reaching it, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and for a split second, I caught the change in his expression before he rejected the call. The name on the screen had appeared just long enough for me to read it. Olivia. Without another word, he slipped the phone into his pocket and walked out. Rebecca waited until his footsteps faded down the hallway before speaking. I have a feeling today won't be the last surprise. Neither did I. I expected Ethan to disappear for a few days. Instead, he was sitting outside my apartment when I got home, his duffel bag beside him and his back against the hallway wall. He stood the moment the elevator doors opened. We need to talk. I've already said everything I needed to say. You never let me explain. I gave you 11 months. This isn't about the apartment. I know. I unlocked the door without another word. Ethan followed me inside and immediately noticed the boxes stacked neatly against one wall. One held my documents. The others held his belongings. You packed my stuff. I organized it. So you planned all this. I did. I gave a short, disbelieving laugh. I can't believe this. I can. I wandered slowly through the apartment. Everything was spotless. The counters were clear, the cabinets organized, and for the first time in months, the place felt peaceful. Ironically, I only got the home I'd wanted after deciding to end the relationship. You've changed. I shook my head. No, I have. He studied me for a long moment. You're not crying. I already did. When? On all the nights you never noticed. Silence settled between us. I rubbed the back of his neck. I know I haven't been perfect. I wasn't asking for perfect. I was burned out. I believed you. I was depressed. I believed that too. I just needed more time. You had almost a year. He stared toward the window. You make it sound like I never cared. I think you did. Hope briefly crossed his face, but only when caring didn't cost you anything. This time, Ethan couldn't hold my gaze. Before either of us spoke again, his phone buzzed. He answered almost immediately. I'll call you back. A woman's voice slipped through the speaker before he muted the call. Less than 2 seconds. Long enough. I recognized Olivia's voice instantly. He saw the look on my face. It isn't what you think. I almost smiled. That's the best part. What? I don't have to guess anymore. He sighed. She keeps calling. You could block her. I was only trying to help. With my money. I told you I'd pay it back. With what income? I looked away. The next morning, Rebecca called. I finished reviewing the transactions. Did you find anything? There are additional transfers. I frowned. I already sent everything. You only found the payment app records. There were also direct bank transfers. How much? She paused. $800. I closed my eyes. So nearly $7,500 altogether. Approximately. The money wasn't what stunned me. It was realizing Ethan had spent months warning me to cut back on groceries, utilities, and mortgage payments, while quietly sending thousands of dollars somewhere else. I need you to preserve one more thing, Rebecca said. What? Any messages about shared finances. I have them. Good. They help establish what both of you understood about the account. And if Mr. Cole contacts you again, keep every message. I will. I did. That evening alone, Ethan called 12 times. I answered the 13th. I'll pay everything back, he said immediately. How? I'll find a job. You weren't ready yesterday. I am now. Interesting. What does that mean? It means you became ready the moment you lost access to my account. That's not fair. I've been struggling. So have I. His voice softened. I never wanted this. Neither did I. Then don't end it. I looked around my quiet office. For months, I dreaded going home. Now I dreaded answering his calls. I spent months begging for this relationship while you ignored me. I'm trying now. I know. Isn't that what you wanted? I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. No. What? I wanted you to try before I gave up. Neither of us said anything. Finally, he whispered. I was stupid. Yes, I know that now. I believe you. You do? I do, but understanding what you destroyed doesn't put it back together. The hope disappeared from his voice. 2 days later, Rebecca called again. Claire, there's something you should know. What happened? I received a phone call this morning. From Ethan. No, from Olivia Grant. Every muscle in my body tightened. What did she want? She asked whether the transfers you've documented could affect her. She knows about them? Not entirely. Rebecca opened a file. According to Olivia, Ethan told her the money belonged solely to him. I stared out my office window. He lied to both of us. That's how it appears. Rebecca continued. She'd like to meet with us. Why? She says she has messages you should read before making any final financial decisions. I closed my laptop. When? Tomorrow morning. The cafe across from Rebecca's office was nearly empty when we arrived. Olivia was already there. She looked nothing like the woman I'd imagined over the past year. There was no smug smile or quiet triumph. Only dark circles under her eyes and a cup of coffee that had long gone untouched. When I approached, she stood. You must be Claire. I am. I'm sorry. The apology caught me off guard. Rebecca gestured toward the chairs. Let's sit. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Olivia slid her phone across the table. I think you should see these. Months of messages between her and Ethan filled the screen. At first they seemed harmless. He asked if she needed help, she thanked him, but the tone quickly changed. One message stopped me cold. Don't worry about the money. Claire pays every bill anyway. She'll never leave. She's too loyal. A week later, he wrote, I'm just waiting for the right time. Then I'll figure everything out. I kept scrolling until I reached a message from 5 days earlier. Olivia. Does Claire know you're sending me her money? Ethan. She doesn't need to know everything. I slowly lowered the phone. The cafe suddenly felt very quiet. I didn't know the account was yours, Olivia said softly. But I should have asked. No one sends that much money month after month without raising questions. I convinced myself it wasn't my place. That was my mistake. I believe you. I ended contact yesterday. Why? She took a slow breath, because once I realized he was lying to both of us, I understood I never really knew him either. Rebecca collected the phone. I think this changes several things. She was right. Until that morning, I'd believed Ethan was simply selfish. Now I understood something far worse. He'd built two completely different versions of his life, trusting that neither woman would ever compare notes. To me, he was a man recovering from burnout. To Olivia, he was a generous provider helping an old friend with his own money. And somehow in both stories, he was the victim. After leaving the cafe, I never contacted him again. There was nothing left to ask. The messages hadn't exposed another affair. They revealed something more unsettling. Ethan changed the truth depending on who was listening. 3 days later, Rebecca called. The notice period ends tomorrow. Would you like someone present while Mr. Cole collects his belongings? Yes. I've arranged for the property manager to meet us at the apartment. That night I barely slept, not because I doubted my decision, but because even necessary endings carry their own grief. I wasn't mourning the relationship we'd had. I was mourning the future I'd believed we were building. The property manager arrived a few minutes early, and Rebecca came as well, simply to observe. At exactly 10 o'clock, Ethan stepped off the elevator carrying 2 empty suitcases. He looked exhausted. His beard had grown unevenly, his expensive sneakers were worn, and the confidence that once filled every room had quietly disappeared. When he noticed Rebecca, he sighed. Really? My client requested today's move be documented, she replied. He nodded without arguing. I unlocked the apartment. The place felt brighter than it ever had. The cabinets were organized, fresh flowers sat on the dining table, and the air smelled faintly of lemon instead of old takeout. Ethan looked around slowly. You changed everything. I cleaned. He shook his head. No, you changed how this place feels. Maybe I'd changed. Or maybe I was finally seeing the apartment without constant disappointment. Every box was exactly where I'd left it, neatly labeled and sorted. Kitchen items, books, electronics, clothing, and personal documents had all been packed separately. He stared at them. You packed all this yourself? Yes. You could have thrown everything into garbage bags. I wasn't trying to punish you. Han held my gaze for a long moment. I would have deserved that. I didn't answer. He quietly carried out one box after another, while the property manager checked each item against the inventory. There were no arguments, no accusations, just signatures and silence. It felt strangely appropriate. Our relationship had fallen apart little by little. Now it was leaving the apartment the same way. Halfway through, Ethan stopped in front of the bookshelf. One framed photo remained. It was from our first vacation together, standing beside a lake at sunrise, both of us laughing instead of looking at the camera. I remember this trip. So do I. I was happy. I know. Hank hesitated. Were you? I was. Hank looked surprised. You still think those years were real? Of course. Then why throw everything away? I met his eyes. I'm not throwing away the good memories. My gaze drifted around the apartment one last time. I'm just refusing to keep living inside the bad ones. He lowered his head. For the first time, silence hurt Ethan more than any argument. By early afternoon, almost all of his belongings were gone. He carried the last suitcase to the door, then stopped. Claire? Yes? I got a job, a logistics company. I start Monday. I'm glad. He let out a quiet laugh. A month ago, that's all you wanted. I shook my head. I wanted us to build a life together. I just never wanted to build it alone. He nodded. I understand that now. I believed he meant it. The problem was that understanding had arrived after the damage, not before it. Rebecca stepped into the hallway to speak with the property manager, leaving Ethan and me alone for the first time all day. I've been thinking about something, he said. The question you asked me. What I'd sacrificed. He nodded. I couldn't answer then. I can now. I waited. I gave up taking responsibility for my own life. His voice wavered. I kept calling it stress, then burnout. But somewhere along the way, I got comfortable letting you carry everything. His eyes drifted to the spotless kitchen. I don't expect you to believe me, he said quietly. I just needed to say it. Unfortunately, understanding wasn't the same as repairing what he'd broken. That evening, after everyone left, I sat alone on the balcony with a cup of tea. Without Ethan's things, every room suddenly seemed larger. There was one toothbrush in the bathroom, one coffee mug on the drying rack, and one pair of shoes by the front door. For the first time in nearly a year, everything in the apartment belonged to someone who appreciated the work it took to keep it that way. My phone buzzed. I was wrong. A second message followed. Not because I lost the apartment, not because I lost the money, because I finally realized I stopped seeing you long before you stopped loving me. Months earlier, I would have read those messages over and over. This time, I locked my phone and slipped it into my bag. I replied once, "I hope you become the person you finally understand you needed to be." Then I set my phone aside. I thought the conversation was over. The next morning, Rebecca called before I reached the office. "I need you to come by." Did something happen? Ethan came in first thing this morning. Before cutting contact, Olivia handed him every financial record she had. He isn't contesting anything anymore. What kind of records? There are transactions you haven't seen. More transfers? No. She paused. It appears someone else may have been using Ethan almost as much as he was using you. 20 minutes later, I walked into Rebecca's office. 2 folders waited on the conference table. One had my name. The other belonged to Ethan. He stood by the window, looking exhausted and years older than when I'd last seen him. "Thank you for coming." Rebecca motioned toward the chair across from him. "Let's finish this properly." After I sat down, Ethan slid a thick envelope toward me. "I think these belong to you." Inside were bank statements, receipts, email confirmations, and messages. At first, everything looked familiar, until I noticed that several transfers Ethan had sent to Olivia had been forwarded elsewhere, not back to him, to an account neither of us recognized. "What is this?" I asked. Ethan rubbed his face. "I didn't know." "Know what?" "Olivia never kept most of the money." Rebecca slid another document toward me. Hospital records confirmed Daniel's injury, while the bank statements showed Olivia forwarding nearly every transfer to pay for his treatment. I looked at Ethan. "So she really did need help?" "Yes, but she didn't know the money came from me." He shook his head. "She believed I was paying for everything. And you let her believe it?" "Yes." His voice was barely audible. "I wanted Olivia to think I was saving her, while I wanted you to believe I was doing everything I could." He lowered his eyes. "I lied to both of you." I nodded. "Yes." I didn't argue. "You wanted her to admire you," I said quietly, "using my money." He lowered his head. "I know." Rebecca set the final document on the table and looked at him, waiting for what he would say next. If Mr. Cole had refused to reimburse the unauthorized transfers, we were fully prepared to pursue recovery through civil court, Rebecca said. The banking records, payment history, and authenticated messages provide more than enough evidence. She turned another page. Instead, Mr. Cole has chosen to resolve the matter through a repayment agreement. Ethan let out a slow breath. "I don't want this to end in court." I looked down at the agreement. "I'd rather spend the next 2 years paying Claire back than fight a case I already know I'd lose. I've already taken enough from her." I looked at him. "You don't have that kind of money." "I don't." "So how?" "I've accepted a full-time job." He slid the employment contract across the table. Attached was a repayment schedule showing that part of every paycheck would be deposited into my account until every unauthorized transfer had been repaid. "It'll take time," he said, "but every dollar is coming back." "You didn't have to agree to this." He finally met my eyes. "Yes, I did." Rebecca stepped out to answer a phone call, leaving us alone for the last time. The silence no longer felt angry or hopeful. It simply felt finished. "I've been thinking about something," Ethan said. "The question you asked me. What I'd sacrificed." He nodded. I couldn't answer then. And now, I kept choosing the easier lie. I looked at the repayment agreement. I'm done making excuses. I thought about all the evenings I'd walked through our front door hoping tomorrow would finally be different. We had both been waiting for a future that never arrived. The difference was that mine required effort. His required excuses. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "You shouldn't. Or friendship. You won't have it." He nodded, unsurprised. Then he reached into his backpack and placed a small velvet box on the table. I recognized it immediately. The silver watch I'd bought for his birthday. The one I'd found in the trash. "I went back for it after you left for work," he said quietly. I told myself I'd apologize when things calmed down. They never did. I opened the box. The watch was untouched, exactly as I'd bought it. "I don't deserve to give it back," he said. "No, but it always belonged to you." I closed the lid. The tears that came weren't for Ethan. They were for the woman who'd wrapped that gift believing love could carry 2 people forever. She deserved far better than the life she'd accepted. Rebecca returned a few minutes later. "If everyone's ready." Ethan signed first. Then I signed. One signature finalized the repayment agreement. The other closed every remaining legal issue between us. Rebecca gathered the documents. Everything is complete. Ethan stood. I really am sorry. I know. I wish I'd understood sooner. I know. Hang hesitated. Will you ever think of me without hating me? I considered the question before answering. I don't hate you. Hang looked up. I just won't carry you anymore. He closed his eyes briefly. I understand. This time, I believed him. 6 months later, the apartment felt completely different. Not because I'd renovated it, but because it finally reflected the life I wanted. There were plants on the balcony, books beside the sofa, and fresh coffee waiting every morning instead of delivery boxes piling up by the door. Some nights dishes stayed in the sink until morning. Laundry sometimes waited until Sunday. Every month, another payment appeared in my account right on schedule. Ethan never missed one. A few months later, Olivia sent one final email. Daniel had completed rehabilitation and returned to part-time work. She attached the last medical invoices and bank records showing where every dollar had gone, thanked me for believing the truth once it came out, and wished me well. I wished her peace, then deleted the email. One rainy evening, I unlocked my apartment after another long day at work. A single coffee mug sat in the sink. My jacket rested over a chair, and soft music still played from the speaker I'd forgotten to turn off that morning. I stood there for a moment and smiled. I set my keys on the table, slipped off my shoes, and listened to the rain outside. Home finally felt like home again.